So Madeline, can you start by telling me your first and last name, please?
Madeline Eskins.
Can you spell it for me just to make sure we have the correct spelling?
Madeline Eskins.
So tell me about your experience at the concert tonight, starting just before this happened.
We got there a little bit later, probably around like 4:30 or 5 o'clock. And we got one drink each. He got a beer. My boyfriend got a beer. I got some mixed drink they were selling. And we weren't really interested in anybody that was performing at the smaller stage. So I said, let's go get a good spot for Travis Scott. This is the third time I've been at Astroworld Festival. I was there for the first year in 2018. I went in 2019. Did not have one in 2020. So I went. So we went and tried to find a good spot at the stage, like I do every year. It was fine at first. People were sitting down trying to hold their spots in line. It was still daylight, but that was like 6:15, 6:30. As it got closer to 8:30, 8 o'clock, people started, crowding. Got kind of tight, got kind of packed. 8:15, more crowded, more tight, more packed. We couldn't really move around a lot. We were a little bit towards the front. We were about 4 feet away from the fence to the right. There was an alleyway in between the left and right side of general admission for the photographers and for people to walk that were, I guess, celebrities and stuff, and for security. We were about 4 feet away from that fence. So at 8:30, he started a countdown on the main screen, like a timer, till he performed what it was for. And when he started the timer, people started pushing. They'd push forward, and then other people would push back and forward and back. As the timer got closer to 0, it got really, really bad. I couldn't even turn my head to tell my boyfriend anything. I mean, we were packed in there, so I had people shoving me from behind, shoving me from the front, on both sides. It's getting really hard to breathe. I was trying to jump up and lift my head up so I could get air. And whenever he started performing, I looked at my boyfriend. I tried to look at my boyfriend. I only got about this far. And I told him, I said, we have to get out. We have to get out. And he said, we can't. Because we couldn't move. We could not. You couldn't go forward, backwards, inside. You couldn't do anything. The only way to go was up. I remember I was about to tell my boyfriend to tell my son that I loved him, because as it went on, it got to the point where I was like, I'm going to die. I really, truly thought that I was going to get crushed to the point where my trachea was going to get crushed, my chest. I thought I was going to die. So I fainted. I think it was, I don't even remember what song was playing. I don't remember anything. I just know that he had just started. And I fainted. And per my boyfriend and a gentleman that reached out to me on Instagram and said he helped my boyfriend, they basically crowd surfed my unconscious body 4 feet to the right to a security guard, because after trying to get from my boyfriend, he said that he tried to get your attention and you just couldn't, because they were carrying so many people over, that finally him and a just good Samaritan that happened to be there lifted me up, and they just crowd surfed my unconscious body over to the security guard. I came to for a little bit, and I was sitting, and the fence was behind me, the crowd, and I was in that little walkway area, and I looked up, and I passed out again. And then when I woke up again, I was in a different part. I was in the VIP area, and I woke up with a bottle of water in my lap. Essentially what had happened was the security guard dropped me off and sat down, and then went and ran back to get more people in and out. So once I sat there for a minute, I drank my water, looked around, there were people being carried back and forth. And then I stood up and I was about to go, look for my boyfriend. I had no phone service. I tried to call him, I couldn't call him. I look and they're carrying this guy out, and they're about to set him down. And I noticed he looked really bad. His eyes were rolled in the back of his head. He was completely limp. He did not look good. I asked the security guard, I said, have you checked the pulse on this man? He said, I don't know how to do that. He's like, please help. So I checked the pulse. I did not feel a pulse. His eyes were rolled in the back of his head. His pupils weren't reacting. I shined my flashlight in there. I said, do not drop him off here to go get someone else. You need to go take this man to the medical tent. Take him somewhere. Go. I cleared the way. Another security guard overheard me say, because at first, before I told him that, let me rewind. I told him, I was like, I'm an ICU nurse. I've worked in the ED before. I have experience with this. Like, let me help. Instead of just trying to shove through me. The other security guard had overheard me tell the man that. Tell the security guard that. So he came to me, he said, hey, we need your help up here. So he took me to the front of the, I think I was in the VIP area. There were 2 towers beside me that people were standing on, and also where the light crew was on either side. And I walk up, and I mean, nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Nothing. I mean, I work in the ICU. I see people die every week. When I was working in the ER, we get people coming to us that are, have CPRs in progress all the time. I saw 3 people laid out on the ground and maybe 4 medics doing CPR on 3 people. One of them was Blue, the guy that looked the worst. I ran over to the medic and I said, do you have an AED? Do you have an ambu bag? What do we have? How long have you been doing compressions? I just started asking her questions. She said, I don't know. I said, has anybody relieved you from compressions? She's like, no. There were other civilians trying to help do CPR that didn't know how. I mean, teenagers, 19 years old. I asked him how old he was. 19 years old trying to do CPR at 18. I mean, I'm only 23 myself, but still. So I take over compressions. As I'm doing compressions, I'm asking the medics around me. I said, where do we have an AED? Do we have an ambu bag, which is to give them breaths? I said, what do we have? Do we have an IV kit? So I can put an IV. Do we have meds, like epinephrine to give them? They were like, we have 1 AED machine. We have nothing. We have 1 AED and it's over there. And I look, and there's a woman, as I'm doing compressions, she's got pads on her, the shock pads is the best way to explain it. They found the ambu bag. They brought it to us. And so someone started giving him breaths as I was doing compressions. I told them, the medic, I don't know what they were. I don't know if they were paramedics. I'm not sure what they were. Some of them seem to have some experience. Some of them seem to have little to none experience with this situation. I looked at him. I said, I need you to find a femoral pulse, because the man was very heavy. It was hard to get a carotid pulse. There's a lot of adipose tissue, fat tissue. I said, I need you to get a femoral pulse up by the groin. He said, I can get a radial pulse. I don't know where that is. I said, no, you need a femoral pulse or a carotid. And he's like, I don't know how to do that. So since he knew how to give compressions, I had him take over compressions, felt for a pulse. Whenever we did pulse checks, there was no pulse checks going on. It was madness. It was madness. They pulled someone over the rails. After I found some other nurses or medical staff that were in the crowd, they identified themselves as such, started jumping in to help with compressions so we could, relieve the medics that had been doing it for, I don't even know how long. I have no idea how long these people had been pulseless. They started bringing more bodies over. They started trying to do CPR on someone. I said, you have got to check a pulse before you do CPR. If they have a pulse, you don't do CPR. You'll break ribs and just make the situation worse. Checked a pulse on a guy that they started doing CPR. I said, no, he has a pulse, get him out of here. There was only one stretcher. These were big people. We weren't able to get people out. All we could do is just try and keep them awake. And I just keep them alive to the best of our abilities. We had someone else come over. I checked him, no pulse, started CPR on him. I mean, it was madness. And you still have people recording the concert, recording us doing CPR, recording the concert, dancing. And then meanwhile, you have others that are climbing up the tower to the staff that's in charge of the lighting and saying, stop this, shut it down. They're trying to shut the concert down. Nothing was being done. It was absolutely insane. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I am disturbed. Honestly, it should have been stopped. It should have been stopped.
How long did that whole process go on with you helping
Maybe
CPR?
45 minutes total with everything going on, maybe an hour. I'm not entirely sure.
How are you feeling this morning, thinking back on everything? I mean, you mentioned you didn't think you were going to survive.
I'm just glad that if my boyfriend would not have gotten me out of there, don't know what would have happened to me. I'm really thankful that he got me out of there so I could go help others. I tried to find him at first before I got dragged into the CPR madness, but luckily I saw that he had called me, so I knew that he was at least alive and conscious, but I couldn't call him back. I didn't have any cell service. So I figured my resources would be more useful trying to help.
Now you said were unconscious at some point, but your boyfriend, I'm assuming, saw what happened. Does he know how this all started? Was there a fight that broke out? I mean,
no, it was just everyone rushing the stage to see Travis perform. I've been to all 3 Astroworlds, and something like that usually happens whenever the performer goes on. People kind of go forward. But this was completely different. It was way too many people. It was packed before it even started. It was insane.
Did you feel like there was enough security there for that crowd?
Not at all. There wasn't enough medical staff. There wasn't enough security. Even, security was trying to get to people. They couldn't get to anyone because the crowd was entirely too big. I mean, I couldn't move my arm. So there was no way another body was getting in there. They were trying, but they couldn't.
And, there's reports of one of the victims being as young as 10 years old.
No. That was no place for a child.
How are you feeling about, the victims who have lost their lives at a concert?
I feel very angry. Travis acknowledged that something was happening in the crowd. He acknowledged that there was an ambulance. He acknowledged that someone was passed out, and then just continued the concert. I'm angry about that. I'm disappointed in how everything was handled. I'm disappointed that the medical staff that was there was not truly medical staff. They had little to no experience in this. Some of them had little to no experience in this type of situation. It's very unfair for them to be the ones that are, responsible for doing this. I mean, everyone looked to them to provide medical care when they had, not a lot of experience in this field. I'm upset that people are saying that this was all drug related. There's rumors that someone was running around with a needle injecting people with drugs. I never saw that. I'm not an expert in, toxicology. I have no idea how to tell if these people were truly overdosing in that given situation. But I will say that me, as someone who did not do any type of drugs, does not do any type of drugs, that I could have very easily been one of those people because I was getting suffocated. Suffocation can lead to cardiac arrest. And they were saying that these individuals were trampled. Because once you fell in that pit, that crowd, it was almost a death sentence. So, I mean, if you fell, you weren't getting up. So if these people got trampled at 100, could they have had drugs in their system? Probably. There's 50,000 people there to party. But do I think that this was primarily drug related? No. They're saying, oh, it's fentanyl. It's fentanyl-laced drugs. It just doesn't make sense to me if that was the case. Everyone started to die and pass out whenever Travis came on the stage. Did the drugs just kick in for everybody when Travis came on the stage?
And you mentioned that you've gone to his concerts before, and I've heard people talk about this wave where people are moving left to right. Has that ever happened at his previous concerts before he gets on stage?
Yeah, sometimes people are moving, going up and backwards, but it wasn't as compacted as it was yesterday. I mean, I had room to breathe at the other concerts. Yesterday, none. If my boyfriend let me hit the ground, he said he kept me from falling whenever I fainted. If he would let me hit the ground, I think that I would have been one of the people in the hospital or worse.
Wow. And before you go, you mentioned you're an RN. What hospital do you work at?
I work at HCA Kingwood. Okay. It's in North Houston.
Okay. Have you heard of any of the victims? Do you know any of their names?
No, I would like to know who they are. Someone messaged me and said it was one of the victims was his best friend's older sister. I had someone reach out to me and say their daughter was one of the people that passed away. Someone reached out to me asking me if I knew the people I was doing CPR on because she hasn't heard from her daughter in 6-7 hours. And that was, in the middle of the night. I don't know how long it was truly, probably more than that now. I don't know any of those people. I really, hope that at least one person that I was hoping made it. just at least one. But it was one of the gentlemen he was blue. He had been pulseless for at least 15 minutes while I was there doing CPR on him. So I don't know how long he was pulseless before that.
That is so sad. You know, to have that image in your head still this morning, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like I said, I work in the hospital. I work, with people that go into cardiac arrest. I mean, this was more terrifying than anything I've ever seen. Anything I've ever seen, ever.